Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here to speak about these very important topics. With regard to your question about anxiety, it is sad, the extraordinary increase in worry and stress and other symptoms of anxiety that have occurred post-pandemic. It's a major public health crisis across the globe. Last year, I had the opportunity to speak with individuals from New Zealand and some other countries, and I was surprised and saddened to see how the anxiety problems were global in nature, particularly among middle school children and adolescents, those who had strong relationships with peers and with family members as they went into the pandemic, but coming out of the pandemic, many of those relationships were hard to reestablish. And then if you add the impact of social media and the comparisons that children and adolescents make between themselves and the individuals they see on social media platforms, that's added stress in addition to the pandemic. So we're in a very difficult time right now for all of our youth. And it's important for all of us to take extra efforts to try to improve the worry and the stress that children are feeling. Yes, early identification is important because we want to catch these problems while they're mild before they become a diagnosable condition such as generalized anxiety disorder or separation anxiety disorder or developing severe phobias. So screening is the only way to catch these problems when a child has 1 or 2 or 3 symptoms. And it's much easier, much less expensive to manage these problems before they become severe. And with any luck, actually prevent the onset of an anxiety disorder that requires more expensive, more invasive treatments. Our research indicates that it's difficult for parents to identify these problems when they're mild, to detect them early. It's equally difficult for teachers and other adults in a child's life to do this, which is one of the reasons, just like healthcare and just like medicine, it's important to use formal measures that have some evidence of reliability and validity to identify problems early, particularly using self-report measures, because oftentimes children and youth keep these problems to themselves and they do not share them with adults in their life. So this is why screening is so important. Yes, that's an excellent question about the causes of anxiety problems. Certainly the pandemic is a cause that looms large in everyone's mind right now. Social media can exacerbate anxiety problems, especially when youth are making, as I mentioned previously, comparisons between themselves and others on social media platforms. Other potential causes that we should think about are differences between gender identities. One of the findings that we've had over many decades, and other individuals have had similar findings, are cross-cultural similarities in trends in worry and stress associated with a female gender identity and a male gender identity. And the two seem to differentiate at about age 11 or 12 years of age. It's quite remarkable. I know in the Americas and in Spain, we've seen very similar results where girls start to worry considerably more beginning at about that age. There's also evidence of family resemblance for anxiety problems, so the causes can be many, but the interventions or the treatments are very similar, regardless of the cause. Yet, I think from an early intervention and prevention standpoint, the most important thing to remember is early detection in the form of screening. And traditionally, we've not done a great job in many societies of identifying problems before they become severe. And this is just starting to happen, where we're doing more screening in schools and pediatric practices for anxiety, for depression, in the case of adults, for substance abuse, for example. So I'm very pleased to see that, but much more needs to be done to deploy screening measures on a much wider scale to catch these problems. As I mentioned previously, it's difficult to catch these problems informally by just observing children. We need to formally screen for anxiety problems, such as early indications of stress and worry, in order to deploy prevention strategies. With regard to using the BASC-3 and perhaps even some other measures to identify anxiety problems and anxiety disorders, it's really important to look beyond the anxiety scale. So while we have evidence for reliability and validity for our anxiety subscales, the somatic complaints scale on some measures, or somatization scale on the BASC, is really important, particularly for young children. Oftentimes, young children will express their anxiety in the form of headaches or stomach aches. A parent will get a call from school saying your child is ill. And if that happens too frequently, it can be an indicator of anxiety versus some sort of health problem. So the combination of those two measures, anxiety and somatization, are really your best opportunities as a psychologist for identifying anxiety problems.